My name is David, and I've spent the last 10 years of my life building a life with Jennifer, my wife. We met in college, both fresh-faced and full of dreams, and our connection was immediate. We shared everything, from late-night study sessions to weekend adventures exploring the nearby mountains. I still remember our wedding day as if it were yesterday, the sun shining brightly as she walked down the aisle, her smile radiant. We were young, in love, and optimistic about the future. We settled into a comfortable life in our small town, a place where everyone knew each other. It was the kind of town where you could walk into the local pharmacy and chat with the pharmacist, Mark, about the weather or the latest town gossip. Mark was a few years older than us, a friendly guy who had built a solid reputation for being helpful and personable. He was the kind of man who could charm anyone with his easygoing demeanor, and I had always considered him a friend. As the years passed, life settled into a routine. I worked as a software developer, and Jennifer was a part-time graphic designer, balancing her job with her passion for creating art. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we always managed to communicate. I thought we were in a good place until everything changed. The first inkling that something was wrong came one evening when Jennifer was unusually distant. She had been spending more time at the pharmacy, claiming she was working on a project for Mark. I brushed it off as harmless, trusting her completely. But as the days turned into weeks, I noticed her phone buzzing more than usual, and she was often texting late at night. I tried to ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut, but it was hard to shake. Then came the day that shattered my world. I had just returned home from work, and as I stepped through the door, I could hear muffled voices coming from the living room. I thought nothing of it at first. Perhaps Jennifer was on a call with a friend. But as I approached, I recognized the voice. It was Mark's. My heart raced as I listened, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. They were laughing, sharing jokes, and I could hear the familiarity in their banter, a comfort that should have been reserved for me. My mind raced with possibilities, but I pushed the thoughts aside. I was being paranoid. There had to be an explanation. I took a deep breath and walked into the room, ready to greet them. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. Jennifer was sitting on the couch, her legs curled beneath her, leaning into Mark, who was perched on the armrest. They looked too close, too comfortable. I felt my heart drop as I tried to process the scene in front of me. "Hey guys," I said, forcing a smile, but my voice was shaky. Jennifer jumped up, a look of surprise flashing across her face. "David, I didn't know you were home," she stammered, her cheeks flushing. Mark quickly straightened up, his expression shifting from surprise to something that looked like guilt. Hey man, just catching up with Jen about some stuff," Mark said, avoiding my gaze. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, anger, betrayal, but I couldn't articulate them just yet. I forced myself to smile, trying to act as though nothing was wrong. I asked Mark a few casual questions, but it was clear he wanted to leave. Within minutes, he made his excuses and slipped out the door, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Once the door closed, I turned to Jennifer, my heart pounding in my chest. "What was that about?" I demanded, my voice low and tense. She hesitated, and in that moment, I knew something was terribly wrong. The look in her eyes told me everything I needed to know, but I needed to hear it from her lips. "David, it's not what you think," she started, but I could see the cracks forming in her facade. "Then what is it?" I pressed, my voice rising. "You look too cozy with him for it to be just a friendly chat." Jennifer's face fell, and in that moment I felt the ground beneath me shift. I was about to discover the truth, and I feared what that truth would mean for us. The silence that hung in the air was deafening. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing my rising anger and confusion. Jennifer's eyes darted around the room, searching for the right words, but I could see the hesitation in her expression. It felt like an eternity as I waited for her to speak. "David, please, just let me explain," she finally said, her voice trembling. I could see the fear in her eyes, but it was overshadowed by something darker, a flicker of guilt. "Explain what?" I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. "Explain how you've been spending so much time with Mark. Explain why you were laughing like that. Just tell me the truth." She took a deep breath, and I could see her mask of composure crumbling. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. What did, Jennifer? What did just happen? I demanded, my fists clenched at my sides. The flirting, it started as a joke. I didn't think it would go anywhere, but I don't know. He was there for me when you were busy with work. He listened to me, and I guess I got caught up in it, she explained, her eyes pleading with me to understand. Caught up in it. The phrase cut through me like a knife. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as the reality of her words sank in. So, you're saying you chose to cheat on me because I was busy? I asked incredulously, my voice shaking with disbelief. No, that's not what I meant, she exclaimed, stepping closer to me. I love you, David, but Mark, he made me feel special in a way I didn't realize I needed. I'm so sorry, I never wanted to hurt you. Her apology felt hollow. I could see the remorse etched on her face, but it didn't erase the betrayal I felt. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead I felt a deep sense of loss, a loss of trust, a loss of the life we had built together. Is it still happening? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. No, she said, shaking her head vigorously. It was just a few messages, a couple of meetings. I ended it before it went too far, I swear. But her words felt like a feeble attempt to patch a shattered glass. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that our love could withstand this. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was taking root in my heart. I need some time, I finally said, turning away from her. I couldn't bear to look at her, to see the pain I was causing her, even though she was the one who had hurt me. David, please don't go, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I walked to the door, my mind racing. I needed air, a moment to think. I stepped outside into the cool night, the stars twinkling above me, indifferent to my turmoil. I felt like I was in a fog, every thought muddled by the weight of betrayal. I walked aimlessly around our neighborhood, replaying the conversation in my mind. How could she do this to me? We had built a life together, and now it felt like everything was crumbling. I thought about Mark, the local pharmacist, the man I had trusted. The anger began to bubble up inside me as I imagined the two of them together, laughing and sharing moments that should have been ours. As I walked, I felt a sense of clarity begin to form amidst the chaos. I couldn't just let this slide. I had to confront Mark. I needed answers, and more than that, I needed to make him understand the pain he had caused. I returned home, my mind made up. Jennifer was waiting for me, her eyes filled with tears. David, please don't do anything rash, she begged, but I could see the fear in her expression. I need to talk to Mark, I said firmly, my resolve strengthening. David, no, that won't solve anything, she cried. Maybe not, but I can't just sit here and pretend everything is fine. I shot back, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. I grabbed my keys, ready to head out, but Jennifer stepped in front of me, desperation written all over her face. Please, let's talk this through. I'll do anything to make it right, she pleaded. Anything. I echoed, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. Yes, just don't go to him, she begged, but I could see it in her eyes. She was afraid of what I might do. But I had already made my decision. I was going to confront Mark, and I was going to make him regret his choices. I stepped out of the house, the door closing behind me with a definitive thud that echoed the finality of my decision. The night air was crisp, and it felt like a cleansing breeze against my heated skin. My thoughts swirled as I drove towards the pharmacy, the familiar streets now feeling foreign and tainted. I had always seen this town as a safe haven, a place where I belonged. But now it felt like a battleground, a place where trust had been shattered. As I pulled into the parking lot of the pharmacy, I could feel my heart racing. I parked my car and took a moment to gather my thoughts. What exactly was I going to say to Mark? I had rehearsed 1,000 scenarios in my mind, but none of them felt right. Rage, sorrow, confusion. These emotions battled within me, creating a storm I was desperate to unleash. I stepped out of the car and made my way to the entrance, the bright lights of the pharmacy casting a harsh glow over the pavement. The door chimed as I entered, and the familiar scent of antiseptic and over-the-counter medicine hit me. It was a place I had frequented for years, but tonight it felt like a den of deceit. Mark was behind the counter, sorting through some medications. He looked up and greeted me with that same easy smile that had always made him seem approachable. Hey David, what can I do for you? I felt the blood rush to my head and I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to lash out immediately. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady, though I could feel the tension radiating from me. Mark's smile faded and he nodded, sensing the gravity of the situation. "Sure, let's step into the back for a moment," he replied, motioning for me to follow him. We walked into a small break room and he closed the door behind us. The air was thick with unspoken words and I could see the confusion etched on his face. "What's going on?" he asked, his tone cautious. "Don't play dumb with me, Mark," I said, my voice low but firm. "I know about you and Jennifer." His expression shifted from confusion to shock, and I could see the gears turning in his mind as he processed. "My words, David, save it," I interrupted, my anger boiling over. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You've betrayed me and you've betrayed her. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mark took a step back, his eyes wide. "I never meant for it to go that far. It was just harmless flirting, I thought." "Thought what?" I spat, my voice rising. "That it was okay to take advantage of my wife when I wasn't around. You think that's harmless?" He opened his mouth to argue but then closed it, realizing there was no justification for his actions. "I'm sorry, David, I really am. It was a mistake," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "A mistake?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. "You think that's all it was? You think you can just brush it off like it doesn't matter?" I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. "You need to understand the impact of what you've done. You've messed with my life, with my marriage, and I won't let you get away with it." Mark looked genuinely remorseful, but it wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel the weight of his actions, to understand the pain he had caused. "What do you want from me?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "I want you to tell Jennifer you're done," I said, my voice steady now. "I want you to make it clear that whatever this was, it ends here. You need to make sure she knows she can't ever trust you again." He nodded, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. "I'll talk to her," he said, though I could sense he wasn't fully committed. "And if you do?" I challenged, stepping closer, my voice low and threatening. "If you don't, I will make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what you did. I'll make it my mission to ruin your reputation." Mark swallowed hard, his face paling. "You wouldn't do that," he said, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "Try me," I replied, my voice ice cold. I turned to leave, but then paused, looking back at him. "You think this is just about you and Jennifer? It's about me too. I trusted you. You were supposed to be a friend. You've taken that from me and I won't forget it." As I walked out of the pharmacy, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction mixed with the lingering hurt. I had confronted Mark, made my feelings known, and now it was up to him to follow through. I knew I was treading dangerous waters, but I couldn't allow myself to feel sympathy for either of them. Driving home, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, but the road ahead was still fraught with uncertainty. I needed to confront Jennifer again, to make her understand that this wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a betrayal of everything we had built together. When I arrived home, I found her sitting on the couch, her eyes puffy from crying. She looked up at me, a mixture of hope and fear in her gaze. "Did you talk to him?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I did," I replied, my heart heavy. "And now it's time for us to have another conversation." "David, please," she started, but I held up a hand to stop her. "No more excuses, Jennifer. I need to know if you're truly committed to us or if I'm just a fallback for you." The tension in the room was palpable, and I knew this conversation would determine the fate of our marriage. The silence between us was suffocating, and I could sense the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Jennifer sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes darting around the room as if searching for the right words. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat a reminder of the betrayal and the uncertainty that loomed over us. "David, she began, but I cut her off. "No more half-truths, Jennifer. I need to know where you stand. This isn't just about you anymore, it's about us. Are you still in love with me, or are you still caught up in whatever you had with Mark?" Her face fell, and I could see the fear flicker in her eyes. "I love you, David. I've always loved you. What happened with Mark was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. "You call it a mistake, but it was a choice, Jennifer. You chose to betray me. You chose to seek comfort in someone else when you should have come to me." I didn't plan for it to happen. I was feeling neglected and Mark was there. I thought it was harmless, she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. But it wasn't harmless, was it? I shot back, my anger flaring anew. You let it go too far. You let him into our lives, into your heart, and now look where we are. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I know I messed up. I was foolish and selfish. I thought I could handle it, but it spiraled out of control. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice softer now but still tinged with pain. Why didn't you come to me when you felt neglected? Why go to him? She shook her head, her expression pained. I thought I could fix it myself. I didn't want to burden you with my insecurities, but I see now how wrong I was. I should have talked to you. I should have been honest. I took a deep breath, trying to process her words. So what now? How do we move forward from this? I want to fix this, David. I want to fight for our marriage, she said, her voice trembling but filled with determination. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll cut all ties with Mark, I promise. The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't let myself be swayed so easily. What if you're not strong enough? What if you slip again? Then I'll fight harder, she insisted, her eyes locking onto mine with a fierce intensity. I love you and I refuse to let this be the end of us. I'll go to therapy. I'll do everything I can to rebuild your trust. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Trust isn't something you just rebuild overnight, Jennifer. It takes time and it takes effort from both of us. I need to see that you're serious about this. I am serious, she exclaimed, her voice rising again. I'll prove it to you. Just give me a chance to show you that I can be the wife you deserve. I looked at her, searching her face for any sign of deceit, but all I saw was a woman who was scared and desperate to make amends. I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crack, but I pushed them back up, unwilling to let my guard down just yet. I don't know if I can just forgive and forget, I said, my voice heavy with uncertainty. You have to understand how deeply you've hurt me. It's going to take time for me to process all of this. I understand, she said, her voice breaking. Just please don't give up on us. I'll show you that I can be better. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I nodded slowly, my mind racing with thoughts. Maybe there was a way forward, but it wouldn't be easy. I needed to see her commitment, not just in her words, but in her actions. All right, I finally said, but this is going to be a long road. We'll need to communicate openly. No more secrets, no more lies. If you want to fix this, we have to be honest with each other. She nodded vigorously, relief flooding her features. I promise, David, I'll be completely open with you, no more hiding anything. I need to know everything, Jennifer. I need to know what you were feeling when you turned to Mark, what you were looking for that you felt I wasn't giving you, I said, my voice steady. I was feeling lonely, neglected. I thought you were too busy with work to notice me, she admitted, her voice trembling. I should have come to you. I should have told you how I felt, but I didn't. I was foolish and I'm so sorry. I felt a mix of anger and sympathy at her confession. It was clear she was struggling, but that didn't excuse her actions. I need you to understand that I can't just sweep this under the rug. We have to face it head on together. I understand, she said, her eyes filled with tears. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. Okay, then let's start by setting some ground rules. We'll talk regularly and I want you to be honest about your feelings. No more hiding. Agreed, she replied, her voice steadier now. I'll be honest with you, I promise. As we began to lay the foundation for rebuilding our relationship, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the despair. It was going to be a long, arduous journey, but maybe we could find a way back to each other. But in the back of my mind, the thought of Mark lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. I had confronted him, but I needed to ensure he stayed away from Jennifer for both our sakes. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt like I was on a tightrope, balancing between hope and despair as Jennifer, and I worked to rebuild our relationship. We had agreed to communicate openly, and I found myself cautiously optimistic, though I couldn't shake the lingering anger and betrayal that haunted me. Jennifer was making an effort to show me she was committed. She started attending therapy sessions, both individually and as a couple, which I thought was a good step. She was trying to be more present, more engaged, and I could see her genuine desire to make amends. But every time I saw her phone buzzing, a knot tightened in my stomach, and I couldn't help but wonder if she was still in contact with Mark. One evening, after a long day at work, I returned home to find Jennifer sitting at the kitchen table, her brow furrowed in concentration as she scribbled notes. I could see the determination on her face, and for a moment I felt a wave of affection wash over me. But the doubts crept back in as I recalled our previous conversations. "Hey," I said softly, stepping into the room. She looked up and smiled, a genuine warmth lighting up her features. "Hi, I was just going over some notes from my session today. I think it's really helping," she replied, her voice bright with enthusiasm. "That's great to hear," I said, trying to match her positivity. "What did you talk about?" She launched into a discussion about her feelings of loneliness and how she had realized she needed to communicate better with me. I listened, nodding along as she spoke, but in the back of my mind I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. After a while I decided to address the elephant in the room. "So, are you still in contact with Mark?" The moment the words left my mouth I could see the tension in her shoulders. She hesitated and I felt my heart drop. "No, David, I told you I cut ties with him. I haven't spoken to him since our conversation." "Are you sure?" I pressed, my voice steady but firm. "Because if there's anything going on I need to know, I can't go through this again." "I swear I'm not in contact with him," she insisted, her eyes wide with sincerity. "I promise you I'm committed to us. I know I messed up and I'm doing everything I can to show you that I want to be with you." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her again, but the memories of betrayal were still fresh in my mind. "It's just hard for me, Jen. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells." "I understand," she said softly, reaching out to touch my hand, "but I'm here. I want to work through this with you." As I looked into her eyes, I saw a glimmer of the woman I fell in love with, and it gave me a flicker of hope. But I knew I couldn't let my guard down completely. I had to stay vigilant, especially when it came to Mark. That night I made a decision. I needed to ensure that Mark understood the boundaries I had set. I had confronted him once, but it was time for a more definitive action. I wanted to make it clear that he was not to interfere in our lives again. The next day I returned to the pharmacy, my resolve stealing with each step. I walked in, my heart pounding as I approached the counter. Mark was there, sorting through prescriptions, and when he saw me, his expression shifted from surprise to apprehension. "David," he said, his voice cautious. "What's up?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "We need to talk again." "Okay," he replied, glancing around as if gauging the situation. "Let's step into the back." We moved into the break room again, but this time the air felt charged with tension. I didn't waste any time. "I need you to understand something, Mark. This isn't over. You may think it was just a fling, but it had real consequences. You hurt me and you hurt Jennifer. I won't let you do that again." He nodded, his expression sober. "I get it, David, I really do. I'm sorry for what happened. I never wanted to come between you two." "Then you need to stay away from her," I said firmly. "No more contact. I don't want to see you at the pharmacy when she's there. Nothing. If I hear that you've tried to reach her again, I will make sure everyone knows what happened between you two." Mark looked at me, the gravity of my words sinking in. "I promise I won't contact her again. I'll respect your wishes." "Good," I replied, feeling a sense of satisfaction wash over me. "Because if you don't, I'll make it my mission to ruin you." As I left the pharmacy, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had taken control of the situation, and now it was up. Mark to respect the boundaries I had set. But I also knew that the road ahead would still be bumpy. Back at home, I found Jennifer waiting for me, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety. "How did it go?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "I made it clear to Mark that he's not to contact you again," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Her face lit up with relief. "Thank you, David, that means a lot to me." But I continued, "This is just one step. We still have a long way to go. I need you to keep working on yourself, and I need to see you making an effort to rebuild our trust." "I will," she promised, her voice earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes." As we sat together, I felt a flicker of hope for the first time since the betrayal. Maybe we could find our way back to each other, but I also knew that I had to remain vigilant. Trust was a fragile thing, and I wasn't ready to let my guard down completely. The next few weeks felt like a delicate dance. Careful balancing act between rebuilding trust and confronting the lingering shadows of betrayal. Jennifer and I made a conscious effort to communicate more openly. And while I could see her commitment to making things right, the scars of her infidelity still loomed over us. We attended therapy sessions together, where we navigated the complex emotions that had arisen from her affair. The sessions were often painful, filled with raw honesty and tears, but each time I felt a little more of my heart begin to mend. I realized that while I had been deeply hurt, I still loved her and I wanted to find a way to move forward. One evening, after a particularly intense session, we returned home, both emotionally drained. Jennifer looked at me with a mixture of vulnerability and determination. "David, I know I've made mistakes and I can't change the past. But I want to be better for you. I want to be the wife you deserve." I nodded, feeling a wave of conflicting emotions wash over me. "I appreciate that, Jen. I really do. But I need to see you putting in the effort every day. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight." "I understand," she replied, her voice steady. "And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I want to show you that I can be trusted again." As the weeks turned into months, I watched as Jennifer began to change. She was more attentive, more present, and she made a conscious effort to include me in her life. We started taking weekend trips together, revisiting places that held special memories for us. Each small step felt like a victory, but I still had my doubts. One night, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt a moment of peace. I turned to her and smiled, genuinely appreciating the effort she was making. "You know I'm proud of you. You're really trying." Her face lit up and she reached for my hand. "Thank you, David. That means a lot to me. I want to make this right." But as much as I wanted to embrace this newfound hope, there was still a part of me that couldn't shake the fear of what had happened. I found myself checking her phone periodically, not out of distrust but out of habit. I knew it wasn't healthy, but I couldn't help it. One evening, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone, hesitating for a moment before unlocking it. I quickly scrolled through her messages, my heart racing. There were no messages from Mark, no signs of communication. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. I knew I couldn't keep living like this, constantly checking, constantly worried. When Jennifer came out of the shower, I put the phone down and turned to her. "Jen, we need to talk." She looked at me, concern etched on her face. "What's wrong?" "I've been checking your phone," I admitted, my voice steady but remorseful. "I know it's not healthy, but I can't help it. I'm still struggling with trust and I don't want to feel this way." She sat down beside me, her expression softening. "David, I understand. It's going to take time for both of us to heal. But I promise you I'm not hiding anything. I want to be transparent with you." "I know," I replied, feeling a mix of gratitude and guilt. "But I need to work on my own issues too. I can't keep living in fear of what might happen." "I want to help you with that," she said, placing a hand on my knee. "Let's work on it together. We can go to therapy separately if you think that would help." The idea of individual therapy felt daunting, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to confront my own insecurities and fears, to understand that healing would be a process for both of us. "Okay," I said, taking a deep breath. "I'll consider it." As the weeks passed, we continued to navigate the complexities of our relationship. I started my own therapy sessions, and while it was uncomfortable to confront my feelings of inadequacy and betrayal, I knew it was necessary. I learned to voice my fears more openly with Jennifer, and she responded with patience and understanding. Slowly, I began to feel a shift in our relationship. The anger that had consumed me was gradually replaced with a sense of acceptance. I realized that while the past could not be changed, we had the power to shape our future. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I took a moment to reflect on how far we had come. "You know, I never thought we'd be able to get through this," I said, my voice filled with sincerity, "but I'm starting to believe that we can." Jennifer smiled, her eyes sparkling with hope. "I believe that too. I love you, David. I'm committed to making this work." "I love you too," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "And I'm willing to fight for us." As we embraced, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey ahead would still be challenging, but I knew we were on the right path. We had both made mistakes, but together we were learning to heal. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope for the future. Trust would take time to rebuild, but as long as we were committed to each other, I believed we could emerge stronger than before. In the end, I realized that love is not just about the good times. It's about weathering the storms together and coming out the other side, hand in hand.